Good morning, this is your today's headlines briefing for August 3, 2026. We begin in Washington, where Todd Blanche's bid to become Attorney General cleared a key hurdle after he issued a memo abandoning parts of a deal the Justice Department had struck with President Trump regarding the president's lawsuit against the IRS Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Tom Tillis of North Carolina, who had threatened to block the nomination, said they were pleased with Blanche's written commitment and would now support his confirmation, noting that the Justice Department had moved to set aside elements of the agreement that had raised concerns about a proposed $1.8 billion fund for Trump allies and the president's immunity from tax scrutiny. Turning to the Middle East, analysts and lawmakers are trying to decipher whether President Trump's latest announcement signals the start of negotiations with Iran on Monday or merely reflects the president working through unappealing options. Over the weekend, Trump had vowed that U.S. forces would unleash a furious new round of attacks, saying the military would be hitting them very hard, but by Saturday night he said the forces remained locked and loaded while he decided to call the strikes off, adding that he had been asked to do so by Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Iran themselves. From North Africa, reporting from FNIDEC, Morocco, describes the desperation of young Moroccans who cite bleak economic prospects as the reason they crossed into Ceuta, the small Spanish territory on the North African coast. Between 50,000 and 60,000 people entered Ceuta last week, and while King Mohammed VI marked his 27th year on the throne by speaking hopefully of a safe, stable Morocco with a growing economy, the migrants' testimonies highlight the stark gap between official optimism and lived reality. In France, as a heat wave grips the country, the government has enlisted postal workers to check on older residents to prevent heat-related deaths. In Aix-les-Bains and Venezuela, postal worker Harmony Simon visited retiree Martine Coum, a 68-year-old woman with diabetes and asthma, not to deliver mail but to ensure she had not succumbed to heatstroke. After being let inside, Simon rushed to inspect windows that the resident had covered with peeling bits of aluminum foil, a makeshift effort to keep the heat out. Venezuela's coastal city of La Guaira, once the nation's main gateway, remains unrecognizable more than a month after deadly earthquakes devastated the area. Photographs show destroyed buildings along Avenida José María España in the Carabalita sector, and a billboard that still bears a gigantic image of former President Nicolás Maduro accompanied by the biblical phrase "a land flowing with milk and honey," now a bitter reminder of what the coastline once promised. In northwestern Pakistan, a suicide bombing outside a police station in the Swat Valley killed at least 14 people, with the Pakistani Taliban claiming responsibility. The attack struck as residents and civil society activists gathered near the station for a peace rally protesting a recent rise in militant violence. Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi said officers had sacrificed their lives to stop the suicide blast, underscoring the severity of the surge in attacks that has reignited fears in a region once dominated by the Taliban. Back in the United States, authorities in Idaho confirmed that the gunman who opened fire at an In-N-Out restaurant acted alone, and that an off-duty state trooper and a private citizen returned fire, helping to slow the 24-year-old shooter. The incident remains under investigation, but officials have emphasized the lone actor nature of the attack. In Washington state, firefighters continue to battle the Spokane wildfires, which have destroyed hundreds of structures and forced the evacuation of about 60,000 people. Described as the largest natural disaster in Spokane's history, the blazes have scorched more than 5,390 acres. On Sunday, nearly 1,000 firefighters were combating at least 3 fires that had ballooned over the weekend, and officials said improving weather conditions could aid containment efforts. Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno broke his silence on a painful family matter, condemning his former son-in-law, Representative Max Miller, after his daughter alleged years of domestic abuse. Moreno said the dispute had put his family through pure hell and declared that Miller was not fit to hold public office, citing basic standards of character that he believes Miller fails to meet. In the political sphere, a Times investigation traces the transformation of the law firm Paul Weiss from a progressive stalwart that once led legal resistance against President Trump's first term to a firm that surrendered without a fight. Reporters reviewed internal documents and interviewed dozens of current and former lawyers, noting that Brad Karp keeps on his desk a framed picture of a young girl and her father reunited after being separated at the border by the Trump administration's immigration policies, a personal reminder of the firm's earlier stance. At the Democratic Socialists of America's National Summit in Chicago, attendees gathered in a dive bar on the city's south side, where a bubbly mood followed the first day of discussions. Nervous energy and a sprawling tableau of sometimes competing interests were on display, with participants listening to Katie Sims speak during an after-party at Maria's Packaged Goods and Community Bar, reflecting the organization's internal debates over direction and priorities. Michigan's Democratic Senate primary is shaping up to be a closely watched contest between progressive former public health official Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and moderate Representative Haley Stevens. The race has seen twists, heated exchanges, viral moments, and tens of millions of dollars in outside spending, with divisions over Israel and high-profile endorsements influencing the outcome, which could affect the battle for Senate majority and the future of the party. In business news, the United States and Japan carried out a rare coordinated intervention in foreign exchange markets to prop up the yen, which had been trading near four-decade lows. Treasury Department officials moved last week to support the currency, marking the first joint operation of its kind in over a decade. President Trump confirmed the assistance, and Japan's finance minister, Satsuki Katayama, said the step was aimed at countering excessive volatility and disorderly movements in the yen after months of turbulence. Oil markets reacted sharply to the pause in the U.S.-Iran conflict, with Brent crude falling around 5% on Monday as investors digested the news that President Trump had halted a planned assault after Iran and regional allies urged a pause in the 5-month-old war. Iran said it was meeting with Oman to discuss a temporary reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point that before the war carried about one-fifth of the world's oil supply. The baby tracking sector continues to draw attention, with companies like Nanit seeking to expand data collection beyond nighttime monitoring, aiming to track infants for much longer periods, though the article provides only a general overview of the trend without further specifics. In technology, Google Earth briefly offered a tool that let users create AI-generated deepfake satellite images by typing a 6-word instruction, "Type whatever you want to see," which allowed billions of users to produce potentially misleading aerial pictures. The company pulled the feature after about 24 hours, citing a lack of safeguards to prevent harmful content, and noted that its original goal had been to unleash users' imagination through satellite imagery, not to enable disinformation. New York City's legal cannabis dispensaries are differentiating themselves in a crowded market by focusing on aesthetics and vibe. After legalization, many opened with sterile, minimalist designs to keep costs low and distance themselves from the once numerous illicit shops. As competition grew, the roughly 300 dispensaries in the city began emphasizing look and feel to attract customers. Each summer, for a few weeks, fireflies emerge from underground in the Northeast to perform their aerial light shows, a brief natural spectacle that draws observers hoping to catch a glimpse of their blinking courtship displays. In the arts, pop star Ariana Grande announced she will step back from public view after her Eternal Sunshine tour concludes next month, citing endless, ongoing public scrutiny as the reason for a much-needed break. The 33-year-old singer, currently in Chicago for the tour, said she looks forward to finishing in London and then taking a respite from public-facing work and appearances. The Broadway show Hadestown parted ways with actor Gino Seegers after resurfaced transgender comments led to his removal from the production, which was set to feature an all-new principal cast beginning in September. House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 7, titled Wild Animals, reminds viewers that even the best-laid plans can go awry when a fire-breathing dragon enters the fray. The episode highlights the distinct personalities of the dragons, sinuous and cunning Syrax, plug-ugly and belligerent sheepstealer, and the ethereal Dreamfire glimpsed only in Helena's visions as they interact with the characters, underscoring the series' blend of personal drama and fantastical threat. In book coverage, Catherine Jesser Morton's The Story of Your Life examines how social media shapes our desire to present a curated version of experience, without condemning the impulse itself. The review notes an email from an older friend questioning why a post featuring his children and pets had not been liked, highlighting the subtle pressures of online validation. Paul Yoon's novel Etna explores the aftermath of war through an unconventional narrator, continuing a literary tradition of stories told by animals or objects such as Tibor Fischer's bull-narrated tale and showing how shifting perspective can reveal details that might otherwise go unnoticed. Inspired by his own dog, Paul Yoon also wrote a harrowing yet hopeful wartime novel told from a canine perspective, reflecting his belief that animals possess hidden strengths and secrets that can illuminate human experiences during conflict. Turning to food, Melissa Clark's recipe for baked fish and chips offers a summer-friendly alternative to deep-fried versions, delivering a 5-star dish that satisfies the craving for seaside comfort without the need for a fryer. The segment also included a cold, crunchy chickpea salad from Yoda Modelengi and a simple chicken dinner that uses up green beans. A collection of fast summer recipes begins with Ollie Slagle's pork tenderloin paired with corn, peaches, and lime, encouraging home cooks to seek the freshest, simply seasoned fish grilled to pearlescent perfection, a luxury that can be replicated anywhere thanks to quick cooking techniques. In science, Jerome Dupras, bassist for one of Quebec's most popular folk rock bands, has been named the province's chief scientist, where he will help shape Quebec's environmental destiny. Described as a Clark Kent-turned Superman figure, Duprez splits his days between supervising graduate students and researching ecological economics in earth-tone blazers, and evenings spent playing bass before fans, shirtless with a tie knotted around his head, and sharing beers from the stage. The wellness sphere spotlights self-help influencer Nicole Lepera, whose holistic psychologist platform has attracted millions seeking advice on contentment and healthy relationships, though her own story is complicated. After years of conventional psychotherapy in Philadelphia, Lepera launched an online venture that grew from a modest Instagram page to 1.5 million followers within 2 years, earning a Forbes label as a radical changer of the mental health business before expanding into a website and paid membership service. In fashion and style, Indian couples are redefining post-wedding celebrations by turning hotel ballrooms into immersive nightclubs that run until sunrise, complete with international DJs, elaborate lighting, and production values that keep guests dancing long after the formal reception ends. Finally, we remember Monty Roberts, the horse trainer whose gentle, non-violent methods earned him the admiration of Queen Elizabeth II and a 3-decade friendship. Roberts, who died at 91 from complications of an autoimmune disease, rejected centuries of traditional horsebreaking that relied on force and violence, leaving a legacy of kindness that continues to influence equestrian practices worldwide. We close with a roundup of opinion pieces. David French argues that small towns should not bear the burden of defending America's water supply from Iran, urging Washington to help local communities fight foreign hackers. In a separate essay, French warns that the war with Iran could swallow the world, noting that President Trump's loss of control over the conflict risks strategic defeat while every path to victory threatens dangerous escalation. Mirzad Boroujerdi reflects on his father's assassination in 1978, explaining how observing Iran's revolutionary generation taught him that expecting meekness or diplomatic finesse from the regime is a dangerous illusion. Anthony Conright contends that the American Civil War should be reframed as the slaveholders' rebellion, pointing out that the conflict was historically labeled an insurrection or rebellion before the term Civil War became standard. Ezra Klein praises Christopher Nolan's adaptation of The Odyssey as a Trojan horse that smuggles Judeo-Christian ethics into an ancient Greek epic, highlighting the trickster nature of Odysseus and the film's relevance to modern figures like Elon Musk. Maureen Ryan discusses Jared Leto and Hollywood's open secrets, noting that while allegations of misconduct are no surprise in certain circles, turning widespread knowledge into meaningful consequences remains elusive. Finally, J.R. Moringer questions whether we can preserve a technology-free corner of America, lamenting the arrival of robot umpires in baseball and sensing a connection between such changes and broader cultural anxieties. That's your briefing for today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.